This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian, Mr. Betcher, and of course, as always, Miss Berlin from Breaking Down Security.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Mr. Betcher, he was a bit tie. He had a long, hard day, so he just got up from a nap just before the podcast. So thankfully, his wife, who cares more about the podcast than he does, woke him up and goes,
I know.
Hey, you have a podcast? Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's good. Tell Mrs. Betcher that I thank her for, having her priorities straight. So.
Right.
I'll tell her.
He's going to stab me. I can feel it. So, all right. Well, so, Mr. Betcher, you live in the Austin area, so you're okay. You didn't have any of the Harvey stuff going on, did you?
No, we didn't have any tornadoes close to us, thankfully. Had a lot of flooding around the area. But, yeah, just heavy winds and a lot of rain.
Yeah.
I put out a 5-gallon bucket the day before. I don't know, I was cleaning up stuff and I just set it aside. And then the next day I went out and it was full.
Oh my God.
So we got a lot of water.
Well, they did say it was some kind of hundreds of trillions of gallons of water landed in Houston. So that's still not over with. As of the 28th, which is when we're recording this,
there's like sharks falling from the sky and stuff.
Is that what it is? Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen any of those movies, so I don't know.
Me neither.
Oh, okay. So it's supposed to track up into the Mississippi River Valley there, so there may be some more flooding down in New Orleans before it's over with. So that'll be an interesting thing to hear how everybody's planning for that. So
yeah, when somebody told me they'd have 20 inches of rain, which was an understatement, by the way, in hindsight.
Yep.
But they said 20 inches, and I was like, ooh, that's going to be devastating for Houston.
Yeah, and actually they had 50, so.
Yeah.
Some places are going to have locally 50 inches of rain, which is a year's worth of rain in like a week. So that's god awful.
It's so flat there. If they get a lot of rain, then the streets are going to flood. Oh, yeah. So I was like, those people better get out.
Yep. So got to practice your DR there, your disaster recovery. So
yeah,
it's pretty bad. But yeah, if you are in the Houston area, We're definitely thinking of you and hope that you can get back on your feet and you haven't lost anything of value. So, but
I like Houston. I like Houston drivers because, they're rude. Like city drivers are rude, but they're fast. So it's like you don't mind,
right?
Because you're going like 75 in a 60.
Have you ever driven in Ohio?
Is it the opposite?
No, I've never driven in Ohio. Why? Is it like they're rude
Everyone
and slow?
goes like 20 miles under the speed limit.
Look, we only have like 5 listeners. Please let's not alienate everybody in the state of Ohio and
No, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And like half of them are Amish, so you have to worry about that.
You can send your hate mail to amandaberlin@gmail.com or whatever. Oh God!
Lots of tractors.
Oh, we did tractors in Missouri. That we had a lot of.
I don't mind the tractors though.
Oh, okay.
They're supposed to go slow.
Yeah,
and so are the Amish people. But all of the rest of them can. Drive faster.
There you go. Let's call it that.
Took me a minute to come up with something.
Yeah. So, Ms. Berlin, you're still settling into your new job, and I hear they're recruiting.
Yeah, it's going really well.
Are they recruiting? I hear they're openly recruiting.
Yeah. So I guess one of the listeners, they didn't tell me who, heard about it and sent in a resume. So I guess we're passively and actively recruiting for things.
Wow.
I don't know exactly what roles. But, I mean, if you're looking for a job, just send it in.
Okay. Well,
I guess just say that you know of me. I mean, you can say that you know me, too. I wouldn't know.
There you go. Mr. Betcher, have you seen anything interesting in your neighborhood, InfoSec-wise, in the last week or so?
Oh, I'm assuming there's a lot in Austin. I haven't been paying attention, but there's over, according to LinkedIn, there's 40,000 job openings in Austin.
Are they all in development though?
Don't know.
Oh, okay.
I guess everything, but 40,000 is a huge number.
Yeah.
So.
Is that like hot singles near you, but it's InfoSec jobs in Houston?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't think it's like that. Yeah. Yeah, that would be...
There are not really that many there.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes it look like you can make, 200,000.
Yeah. We need to have a recruiter on because I think I got the worst job suggestion ever a couple of weeks ago. I actually got pimped for a nurse job.
What?
And I was like, oh, they must be like joking, right? No. It was for a nurse job to like clean bedpans, take BP, everything. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
What makes you think that I have a bachelor's of science in nursing degree and 10 years of experience in nursing that I need to have this sent to me? And I publicly put it out on Twitter. I was like, hey, you guys are the worst recruiting company ever. You deserve to
naturally,
not be
weather observers translates to a good nurse.
Obviously. Yes. No.
Yeah. I've gotten train engineers before.
Oh.
Like,
well, that's not so bad.
I guess one engineer is the same as the next.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I can totally drive it. I mean, they only go straight.
Yeah. I worked in a hospital like for 3 months when I got out of high school, and I worked in the food service area. I can't handle bodily fluids. I'm a sympathetic puker. I can't do anything.
No, yeah, you wouldn't do good as a nurse then.
No, of course not. So yeah, it's worse. We need to get a recruiter on to talk about that. I think
it's a good idea.
Having companies understand job descriptions and helping recruiters write better job descriptions and where the buck stops it would be helpful in understanding that. So,
well, right after I got my computer science degree, I got offered a job as data entry. To transfer paper stuff to computer stuff.
You mean like medical transcriptionists or something like that?
Well, it's basically you use your one hand on the number keypad.
Oh, 10 key.
And you just sit there and you enter those damn numbers all day.
Oh yeah.
And they measure you like how many buttons you push per minute, stuff like that.
I used to be so good at that because I was a cashier at a Tractor Supply store.
I love
and we didn't have scanners, so we had to type in all the numbers.
I love my keyboard with the 10 key on the side. I love that. This is the best Apple keyboard, and it's a wired keyboard for Apple, but I love it because it's got the 10 key on it. Because when I'm typing in IP addresses, I love that stuff.
I don't buy keyboards without the 10 key, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard.
The Mac doesn't come with one.
Nope.
This is a $7 keyboard, and I love these, man.
I have a wireless keyboard that doesn't have the 10 key on it, and it's probably over there shoved in the. Yeah, there it is over there. Yeah, but it doesn't have one, and it bothers me because I have to use the home.
Okay, now that we just wasted 10 minutes without talking about security stuff.
I'm sorry. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. We will seg out of this. So last week being Tuesday. Or Thursday of last week, I went to the NCC group open forums, saw Sarah K. Squire. She's at Sarah K. Squire on Twitter if you want to ask her about NIST guidelines. She was helping to work on the authentication mechanism. So she came out with the new guidance that they figured out. What was interesting, she said that they did those over GitHub. Instead of doing like the typical RFC where you send it out to people on mailing lists and then you wait for people to come back with feedback and then you send out yet another fix or whatever. So she said her and the working group actually convinced NIST to do it on GitHub so that it would be almost instantaneous and the feedback would be, more, useful. And she said,
wow.
They had a number of long, lengthy conversations with people and pseudo experts and Uber experts about these things. And, it was almost instantaneous. So the communication was definitely better on GitHub than doing it like the typical RFC do. So she said some of the things that came out of that was they're getting rid of security questions for password recovery. So, when you go to recover your password, they're recommending that you don't have a recovery password like how many dogs do I own, or, what's your father's maiden name, or mother's maiden. I did that again. Mother's maiden name, or things that are open OSINT type stuff that can be found. So they're wanting to get rid of that in favor, and also the SMS 2-factor, but we already knew about that one. So there's a bunch of stuff coming on. I actually wanted her to come on after DerbyCon, so we're working on all the way out to like mid-October now for ideas for podcasts for things. So we're gonna have Mick Douglas on hopefully after DerbyCon with his talk, and her to talk about the new NIST requirements. So. Getting ready for DerbyCon, that's going to be fun. We talked about that before the show, of course. We're going to be there. We're going to be doing some kind of meetup, I'm sure, so that we can, meet our fans. And if you're coming to DerbyCon, please introduce yourselves to us. And Mr. Betcher, of course.
Some of us don't bite.
Some of us don't bite, right? I've got all my
shots.
So
I've started a DerbyCon list right now, things I need to do at DerbyCon, and I just added something here.
What was it?
Well, you can't announce it on the podcast because it has to do with someone else. Something that happened to someone else, and so I can't publicize it, but that person will be at DerbyCon, and maybe we could nudge him to tell the story.
Oh, you are vague booking the hell out
of
this, aren't you?
Yeah. I don't want to get in trouble.
Vague tweeting. So is this person we talked about before the show?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my God. He's vague tweeting. He's vague talking even to me. Goodness. Talk about vague casting here. Anyway.
I'm bringing baked goods and lots of booze.
That's right. You're doing the Hawaiian shaved ice, aren't you?
Oh, that too. Yeah. So I'm bringing like 4 gallons of moonshine, and I'm doing shaved ice.
Very nice.
Because I bought a shaved ice machine, like a Hawaiian shaved ice machine, and I usually bake something.
Very cool.
Do you have a room at the Hyatt, or what? How are you going to store all this stuff?
I'm sure I know somebody that has a room at the Hyatt where I can store stuff.
You're going to store alcohol in somebody else's room and hope that
I've had people store alcohol in my room. Hopefully they'll return the favor.
Okay.
Adrian said I can keep ice in his room, so
Okay.
I'll probably just leave everything else in his room too.
Right on. Okay. All right, so we do actually have to have a podcast here, folks.
We do. Not talking about.
I wanted to talk about something that I've been doing at work. I don't know if it's talk worthy. Probably isn't. But after seeing some of the talks that I saw at DEF CON on Iron Geek, I probably could do a talk on this. But so there's different kinds of OSINT out there. Most people do OSINT on people or business to find out how their inner workings are. But I have been having to do a lot of vulnerability OSINT because some of the vulnerabilities that I've got, and I'm going to call out Java in particular, there's not a lot of information when a Java vulnerability comes out. You go to Oracle's website and you look at the Oracle vulnerability page for their CPU, which is their critical patch updates that comes out quarterly. And they give you a long list of vulnerabilities, CVSS scores, whether or not they're remote and all that stuff. But that doesn't often work for the people that I work with who are very technical and they want to know, what part of this Java subsystem is affected by this, or, what specifically in Nginx, or what, specifically in, Hadoop. Hadoop is a thing. I don't know if we use it or not, but that's something that just popped in my head. They want to know more particular information about that. And if you go to some of these websites, sometimes you'll find that the people who make them, and I'm calling out Oracle specifically because there's almost no information about the vulnerability specifically in there. So I've had to be doing a lot of additional research on those. And the good thing that I've found, at least for Java, is that some of the OSes that are out there go into far more detail on their security pages than just what you find on Oracle's website. So we use a lot of Ubuntu in my office. and I go to Ubuntu site, and they give you a little bit of information. But if you go to the more technical Linuxes, like Arch or SUSE or I don't know, Scientific Linux or those, you'll often find that they will publish additional information above and beyond what you'll find on Oracle's site. There's some links in our show notes to various websites that have various bits that go into that detail. But so I will put it to Mr. Betcher and Ms. Berlin. But how do you guys handle dealing with vulnerabilities in your environments or in your past environments?
Well, I had the same problem you do sometimes, and you'll go to us the company website that has the vulnerability, and they want to be so obscure about it, like, oh, it's not really our fault, but if you get some idiot who kind of uses it improperly and does these stupid things, you might get the case where sometimes 1 in a million shot that you might have our program just kind of steal all your data.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah. And it's like, what? Oh, it's so awful. And then you go to some other site and they explain it in such a way where, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? And it's not so obscure and things like that. So
yeah, finding those is difficult because it's not always the same site that gives the good explanation.
Yeah,
that's right. You got to be a Google master or something to be able to find a site that actually explains it. And does it really affect me? Can I mitigate it in some way that's not going to be so disruptive as to reboot my databases or something like that? And yeah, it's a challenge, and I know exactly where you're coming from, man.
So here's my problem. The reason I have to go look at these things is because I have people in my organization who want that information. Short of having to actually buy an Oracle product to get the insider information, this is what I've been reduced to, basically, which is, it's not bad. I mean, this is a good exercise if you're wanting to learn about Googling and understanding these things. But is it necessary for us to have to go into that? Is it just a failing on our part to go, okay, CVSS says it's remote, it's network, so it's a remote network vulnerability, there's no auth required, that should be enough? Is it a failing on our part by not being able to explain that to the people who are there? Or are they doing what they're wanting additional information for as a stalling tactic for not fixing an issue?
I don't know if it's a stalling tactic so much as it's not our fault and it's not that bad, right? They try to minimize the problem usually, and it's just clever wording.
Yeah, and the less information they release, I'd imagine the less likely of a proof of concept to come out.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, the more information I have, the more information I can then go to formulate a solution. But if I don't have any information, like, let's put it for instance, so the 2017 10102, if you go to, Ubuntu site, which basically copy and pasted the Java vulnerability stuff from the CPU site, it says vulnerability in Java SE embedded component, So it runs off a bunch of stuff, different versions. Difficult to exploit vulnerability allows unauthenticated attacker with network access via multiple protocols to compromise Java SE embedded. While the vulnerability is in there, attacks may significantly impact additional products. It doesn't really tell me anything other than that it's base score of 9. It's network. It doesn't, the CIA triad is all high. The scope is changed. So other than CVSS vector and the fact that it may affect, the vulnerability is an unauthenticated attacker via network access, you don't get a lot of information there, which is no way of saying, okay, how do we mitigate this vulnerability? One, we may or may not use Java. A lot of the vulnerabilities that I found, at least on the the Oracle website, they do break it down by whether or not it's server side or whether it's client side. And that does make a difference. If you don't use an application that requires Java applets or Java Web Start, some of those don't actually affect you, which is great. And that's a good thing to know. If all of the Java that you're doing is server side, it's an entirely different vulnerability than it would be if you were using a Java applet, which is great. But if you go to Arch website, that same vulnerability says it was discovered that the DCG, or Distributed Garbage Collector implementation in the RMI component of OpenJDK, and that's the other thing that I found, failed to correctly handle references. A remote attacker could use this flaw to execute arbitrary code with the privileges of the RMI registry or Java RMI application. So I have stopped using Oracle's website in that respect when I'm looking for Java vulnerabilities, and instead go to OpenJDK, which shares a lot of the same code base as regular Java. And it also then shares a lot of the same vulnerabilities. I'm sure that there are repackaged, Apache versions out there, or go ahead.
So where are they getting the information? I mean, Oracle put it out. I mean, they are the ones that probably discovered it and know the most about the vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So where are these other places magically getting more information?
It would
I don't
have
really
to
know
be
how that works.
From somebody. It'd have to be from someone else other than Oracle. Because if Oracle found it themselves, they would never publish it.
Well, I mean,
right?
As far as I know, I don't know how OpenJDK works, but I assume OpenJDK is very similar to how CentOS and Red Hat work. CentOS follows Red Hat, and in the development cycle. So when, Red Hat 7 comes out, CentOS 7 comes out, and they all use a lot of the same open source libraries. The only difference is you pay for Red Hat, you don't pay for CentOS. So if people don't want to spend a lot of money, putting their enterprise up with Red Hat, they can always use CentOS. So it would follow that the vulnerabilities that affect Red Hat, and if you get no good information on Red Hat, you may be able to go over to CentOS and look at commit logs or get to look at other vulnerabilities that come on CentOS's page and go, okay, like we found here on Arch Linux's page, all this additional information that we did not get from Ubuntu or Red Hat or what have you. So that's what I've had to be doing. I mean, and of course, I give this to them and say, okay, are we using RMI? And that's the other thing is there's so many, some of these applications are so complicated, you don't even know what you're using under the hood. So it's helpful to know, especially for things like Java or, for Nginx, what, mods you're using or what PHP mods that you're using that, when you're going into that. Because if we're not using RMI, which is has something, it's some kind of subcomponent of Java, but it's also a subcomponent of JDK. If you're not using that, then that doesn't affect you. So that's great. So, I don't know what RMI is. I'm sure somebody out there is yelling at what it is.
Remote method invocation.
There you go. Okay.
This vulnerability, it says at the Oracle site, this vulnerability can only be exploited by supplying data to APIs in the specified component without using untrusted, so like kind of a double negative, without using untrusted Java Web Start applications or untrusted Java applets, such as through a web service.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's really, really bad.
Yeah, but how is it really, really bad? Now, you read that, and some people go, okay, well, if you don't use Java Web Start applets, then you're not vulnerable to this. This is a client-side vulnerability, which, to be fair, a lot of Java vulnerabilities are. So if you're not using Java, on, say, your website, to be able to start up a Java web applet or something like that, then these probably don't affect you. But you need to know that information. And if you can't get that from one vendor or one OS security page, maybe you can find that by visiting another one. So you shouldn't limit yourself to your OS's security page. And there's a myriad of other places. I actually tried the Java Reddit, which I realized was stupid in hindsight because it was just a bunch of Java developers that didn't care anyway, and all they thought was I was looking for, ways of exploiting these things. You can actually go over to the Java Reddit and look up my handle BreakB and see that they were like, "Oh, nice try, evil hacker dude. And I'm like, are you kidding me? 18-year-old, just tell me what I need to know. How are you doing this? And I realized, well, they're not a security people. They're developer people. So they don't really care. So, but there's a lack of, I mean, unless you pay the money to get the Oracle Insider, which requires you to almost buy a product from them, I think that's probably the only other way you're going to get more detailed information. And lacking that, you have to go and, do your due diligence on the Googleage. So that's some of the things I've been working on at work, having to deal with, that. The other thing I found interesting during my travels looking for this specific CVE was a website that will that basically rates what different vulnerabilities cost if you can find a working POC for it. So like the 2017 10,102 vulnerability on this vulndb.com is worth $5,000 to $25,000 US if you can find a vulnerability for it. Because I guess it's remote, so if you can find a POC for it, then it's it's good to go. So yeah, that was that's what I've been working on. Let me see. What do we have on our thing? The DerbyCon CTF walkthrough. Okay, so a lot of people have asked about this. So we have everybody here except Tyler. I should have asked Tyler if he wanted to be here, but I haven't seen him on Slack the last few days. You can sign up for that at breaksec.signup.team if you want to join our Slack. So let's get started. Ms. Berlin, you did stage 1 of our CTF.
I did. It was so much fun.
Yeah. How did you do that? And tell us some of the pitfalls you had trying to make that work.
So I can't remember if I've talked about this here or not before, but did I talk about like the inspiration of what made me think of doing the OSINT one?
I think we talked about it like on a pre-show, but it never actually made it on the show.
All right. So yeah, I had taken Chris Hadnagy's course on social engineering and OSINT at DerbyCon 3 years ago, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. They all kind of run together. And at the end of his class, he had I don't know, it's like almost the entire last day was an OSINT CTF. Really? And I'm not going to give away like all of it, but you basically have to go out and find all this stuff on the internet, but it lasts all day, which probably took him and a very large team of people a long time to create because there was a whole lot of information compared to what mine was.
Really?
So that's kind of the idea behind mine, because I had always wanted to create something kind of sort of like that.
Okay.
So I came up with Big Bob's Chemistry Lab and registered a domain for it, created a blogspot site for it, and while I was driving down to Disney with my family, I had my mom like take notes for me, and I came up with like pretend people. So this CTF only ended up having 3 of the 6 that I came up with because I didn't need that many. Yeah. But I created them all Google email addresses, which looking back, I should have just created like a fake, like one of the short-term email addresses, because I only needed it for, a short amount of time. Yeah. But with those email addresses, I used it to create Facebook accounts, LinkedIn accounts, at least 2 different forum accounts, on a car forum for one of the people. I used it to register the domain. What else? I tried to do some Instagram, but that got shut down. So yeah, it took a long time to create all of these fake profiles on the internet. Turns out that Facebook's AI is pretty advanced and shut down all of the Facebook accounts.
It shut them all down.
Yeah.
Now wait, I only heard that it shut down like 2 of the 3. It actually ended up shutting all of them.
Yeah, it shut down the other one a couple days later.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't end up using any of the Facebook stuff. The old guy, Frank, that was he was a janitor for Big Bob's Chemistry Lab who was in a secret relationship with one of their chemical engineers. I think she was a chemical engineer, something like that.
All right.
So he was not very technologically savvy and used his LinkedIn kind of like Facebook.
Oh, okay. Because that never happens in real life.
Wrote her poems and posts about how much he loved her on LinkedIn. And one of the flags was in one of the poems.
Okay.
So they did a good job finding that one.
Very nice.
The girl that he was in love with was illegally selling narcotics from the chemistry lab out of the trunk of her Volkswagen, maybe? I don't remember the plot anymore. Okay. But out of the trunk of one of her cars, which she was advertising via her profile on the forum.
Okay.
So she had signed up for the car forum and was posting on there with the same user account that I consistently use the same user account for LinkedIn, for the email, for the forums, whatever.
Yeah.
So they'd be easier to find. But yeah, on her profile, it listed a paste bin link.
Mm-hmm.
And the list of narcotics she was selling out of the trunk of her car was in the paste bin link, and there was a flag in that paste bin link as well.
Okay. Now, how would people have found the various people on Google? Was the SEO good enough that all they had to do was put in Big Bob's Chemical Lab, and they would have found the janitor, and they would have found...
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Google just picked it up. I mean, because it's a blog. It was a blog spot.
Oh, right.
Blog. So all you had to do is search for the name, and it would come up.
Okay.
And the fact that they registered as working there on LinkedIn,
right,
showed up in Google.
Wowzers, that was quick. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I added fake stuff to their Google Plus pages, and that's what I was trying to do on Facebook. I was going to try and create a whole bunch of fake stuff on Facebook.
Right.
Yeah. So it was
awesome.
It was interesting.
So we ended up with about 20 people who got to that, I think.
Yeah. There's a good amount of people that got it.
Yep. So the second one was Mr. Betcher. You did stage 2, didn't you?
Yes.
What was your stage all about?
My stage was about, I wrote this this little story, and basically it was your first week on the job or whatever, and there was this problem at work. Okay, so one of your orientation buddies from work wrote you an email that said, hey, I kind of noticed this, and you're a security dude, so maybe you know what's going on. Nobody believes me, but kind of, why don't you take a look at this?
Okay.
And so what it was is you had to recognize that this was a big problem. And the email has a log entry from one of their application servers. And basically you figure out that the company got hacked in some way. Mm-hmm. The company believes that it was instability, but then you can verify by the log entry that this was indeed some sort of a breach where somebody entered the database without proper credentials, admin account.
Okay.
So the log entry has a SQL injection flaw in it, or an attack that you had to recognize. And if you got the attack, then you were able to answer the question. The question was, what is this hash in the log entry mean, or what exactly is the value that is hashed to that entry?
Mm-hmm.
And so the flaw was basically you can tell that it is a username and password entry, and that you type admin and then the password for the admin account. And so basically it says it enters in admin and false. 2 + 2 = 5, which is false. So the whole first part of the statement is false, and that's union to a select statement, which has the username as admin, and the password is injected as whatever password this hash is.
Okay.
So, yep, that's it. If you recognize that it was SQL injection and what it was doing, you would know that the hash represented the password that was entered in the SQL injection.
Yeah.
Or you could just decompile that hash and find out what that is too. If you got Hashcat and you wanted to try and figure that out as well.
Yeah, and I think that
was another way to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I think everybody ended up doing. They took the hash and got the password from that because that was how they got to mine. So stage 3 was me, which I may have phoned it in a little bit, but I really like me some Sudoku puzzles. So I was like, well, let's do a hexadecimal Sudoku puzzle. So what I did was I got up in there and I found a fairly decent randomizer, which I did not realize at the time that when somebody solved it, they said, oh yeah, there's Sudoku solvers online. I'm like, great. I did not realize this.
Hey,
so
hacker.
Yeah, well, I made it difficult, or at least I thought I did. There are so what I didn't tell people was there was an Easter egg inside that if you could not solve the puzzle, if you had looked in the EXIF data on the Sudoku, I had actually put row 3 of the Sudoku inside the metadata. So if you had gone in and looked at in the EXIF, it would have had I solved 25% of it for them just in case. I actually did not know there were Sudoku solvers online because I actually solve them the hard way by logic and not cheating.
You're so old school, man.
There's cheaters for everything.
Cheater McCheatersons out there, but. So, that
everything's fair game in a CTF, though.
That is a true statement. I mean, if you could find something to help you solve it, that's great. So, once you got the code, which was 16, it was a hexadecimal bit of 16 characters. The final section was created by Tyler, and what he did was it was a video file that he added some captioning to. And if you were playing the CTF, the theme song was from Three's Company. And if you watched the whole video, you noticed that there was a message in a trinary format. It was what was it? What is it called? Base 3. It was in base 3. So it was all 0, 1s, and 2s. So if you pulled the whole message out and then used the same kind of method by which you solve base 10 or base 8 or base 6, you get a secret message that said, I always liked, what was her name? Damn. It was one of the ladies. I think it was Suzanne Summers' character on, I always liked, come on, just give me the Break Podcast Gmail. Okay. So the exact message was, I always liked... Anyway, so keep talking and I'll find it. Shut your faces.
We're waiting in suspense.
Shut your whole faces. You're killing me. Okay, so I always preferred Chrissy. That's what it was. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I
actually did.
I actually liked Chrissy as well. Anyway, I never actually watched it except in reruns of reruns. So, but so I put this out at like 8 a.m. Pacific time as I was getting on a ferry to go to Victoria, British Columbia, and I thought, because like the last time we did it, oh yeah, this will take hours and I don't have to worry about it or whatever. I'm sitting there waiting to get on the ferry, and I get the first email. And I'm like, oh, wow. All right. Well, solved in less than an hour by, she goes by @SexSheLady on Twitter. So she solved that fairly quickly. So
say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, I will not. Thank you. Thank you. I don't do my tongue and me don't
Sec
do
she
good.
lady solved.
Yeah, sec_she_lady. She's a malware. Oh, she does malware and reverse engineering enthusiast.
Yeah,
she's a tabletop.
I met her at DEF CON this year.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh, she's a nice lady then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's a malware reverse engineering enthusiast. Interesting. Okay, so it's interesting because we're actually trying to find somebody who can teach us like an intro to reverse engineering course. So maybe I will ask her and see if she wants to do that. So yeah, that was the walkthrough that we had for that. To be honest, I probably could have done a little more on mine, but I was going through Sec 504 at the time. That's not an excuse, but I just,
But it is. You know what? I will have to step up my game too. I thought it would be a little bit harder than what it was, but I've got some ideas for next year, and it'll be much harder.
Well, to be fair, for the real CTFs out there, like what DerbyCon and DEFCON and them are doing, they're already working on next year's right now because it takes time to set all that stuff up. So, it's a big job. Yeah, I thought about maybe doing something on doing like a vulnerable container, and actually. I'm going to put this link in the show notes, but literally 2 days after the end of our CTF, I found this website called, it's a GitHub site, but it's called SecGen. And what it does is it allows you to create vulnerable VMs on the fly.
What?
I know. So let me find that link, and I'm definitely going to put that in the show notes because I found that very interesting. And there's also one that I found that they're also doing vulnerable Dockers right now, vulnerable Docker VMs. So I thought about maybe setting something up for that as well. So, so that'll be in the show notes. But like I said, I'm looking for somebody who can do an intro to RE class for us, a 1 to 200 level intro course where you're basically learning how to do assembly, how understanding assembly, writing shellcode, that kind of thing. For the idea that, we move on to more advanced stuff. I mean, not SANS level stuff, obviously, but, if you're wanting to learn how to run, a debugger, use an Ollie debug, OSCP-like stuff, which is one of the reasons I wanted to start these classes anyway, was to get better at learning about OSCP. So I can one day maybe get mine. So if you do reverse engineering or you just want to teach somebody something, it is a paying gig. We did pay out for Mr. Douglas's class on PowerShell, which went crazy good. We had about 25 people in there, so he enjoyed that immensely, and he'll be on in a couple weeks, like I said, to talk about his DerbyCon talk. So, I think that's long enough show. We had a few other things we wanted to talk about, but we can save those for another time. They'll keep. So they're like,
hang on, break.
Yeah, what's up?
Polanski or Crusher?
You mean Dr. Pulaski?
Yes.
No, not Pulaski. Beverly Crusher forever, man. Trust me. Tap dancing doctor. So for those of you who don't understand, Star Trek Next Generation.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Just to put that out there.
That's okay. My wife does. So in season 4, Beverly Gates McFadden was pregnant, so she went off the show, and I forget what her name is, but she played Dr. Pulaski. She was also on an episode of the original series.
2 episodes.
2 episodes. Oh, 2 episodes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 different characters, as a matter of fact.
Yep. What's her name? Crap. I'll have to look it up. I'll find it. It'll be in the show notes.
Okay, so Pulaski in TOS or Crusher?
Well, Crusher wasn't even in the original series, so Pulaski.
No. There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, she was on that. I guess that's why they brought her back, but in season 4, so of the original.
I like the guy from Reading Rainbow.
His character was very good.
Yes, Jordan LaForge. Yeah,
but he didn't wear the visor on Reading Rainbow.
I know.
No, yeah, that was what was
threw
weird.
Me for a loop, man.
I feel bad because I met him. I actually funded the Reading Rainbow Kickstarter that was going on that made like Brazilian dollars. And I paid enough to go and do like a meet and greet with them down in LA. So we flew from Seattle down to LA. We have some friends down there, so we saw them anyway. But it was like 85 degrees, and I was an idiot and wore pants and a t-shirt. And by the time it was to go in, and we sat around and watched them read and stuff in the YouTube studios down there, and we were all ready for our meet and greet pictures, I was so sweaty, and I sweated on LeVar Burton to the point where he didn't want to put his arm around me, and he rubbed his arm on me so that he would get my sweat off of him. So I felt
that's great.
I was so freaking embarrassed, and I'm really embarrassed that I even told that story right now. I just felt so bad because I was like, oh my God, I was just sweating on LeVar Burton. Oh my God.
I bet you he famous people probably get that a lot, right?
Oh God.
Like sweaty people just on them all the time.
And at Star Trek conventions too. So,
yeah.
It's probably like every InfoSec con multiplied by 10, with
like I get hugged by sweaty people all the time. I can't imagine
so
how they do it.
I would hope that's I don't, he doesn't remember me in his memoirs or whatever. So
there's this one time, the super sweaty guy.
Oh God, you're killing me.
Dripping all over me.
Great. Thank you for that. So, all right, let's get out of here. Let's finish this off. Miss Amanda, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss the CTF or upcoming attendances with you?
I need to say that too because I told you guys, but it wasn't on air.
We will. Don't worry.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead. How do they get a hold of you?
At InfoSister. INFOSYSTIR on Twitter and Slack.
Okay. So before the show, you told us about something that was really awesome. And
yes. So I'm so excited.
So this is going to happen over Thanksgiving. You're going to ditch your kids and go where?
I hate you. I'm ditching my kids and proud of it because I'm leaving the United States for the first time in my life and going to New Zealand to speak at Bsides Wellington.
Awesome. Oh, wait. You said the first time in your life. Have you gotten a passport?
Yeah, I got one. I got one like 3 years ago and I've never used it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you've never even been to Canada or Mexico?
No. And Canada's like an hour and a half away from me.
Why not? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I just have never had the chance or...
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe Leo will invite you up and you can go to Sector Bsides Toronto.
I do want to, but
Toronto is awesome.
Bad timing.
Yeah. So, you're going to go to Wellington, New Zealand, and it's so awesome. Man, Wellington is fantastic. I've been there.
If there's any of our listeners in in New Zealand or Australia or anywhere else that's going.
Yeah. How many days is Bsides Wellington?
It's 2 days, but I plan on being in New Zealand for 7.
Damn right. Oh man, you got to go down there. See if you can get like a I don't know if they do tours around Wellington, but I know that there's a lot of sets and scenes for The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
There is actually a whole Google map that kind of lays out where all the different filmings are and everything that my friend sent me.
There's a lot going on in the South Island. I went to where they did Edoras, where the Horse Lords of Edoras were on Mount Sunday.
Yeah.
That was way out there, but it was so awesome. Trevor was our tour guide for that. He was fantastic. So
there's that the one lake that I've seen in pictures that is like the clearest lake in the world. Mm-hmm. But you're not allowed to actually swim in it because it's sacred or whatever. Oh, wow. But you can look at it, which is, I guess, is cool.
Yeah, don't wash your pits in the sacred lake.
I know. I want to jump in.
Yeah. But, so we did a cruise, a 2-week cruise from Sydney to Auckland and across the Tasman Sea. We did Melford, Doubtful, and Dusky Sound. Did a bunch of wine tours, did Hobbiton. We got to go see Hobbiton. And that was between the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movie, so they didn't have all the sets and everything. Now, all the sets are still there on the sheep farm, and they have the Green Dragon where you can go and have a drink at the tavern and stuff. So that would be awesome if you can get down there and do that.
Yes.
That'd be fantastic.
Hopefully.
Yep. And then I remember Chad, who took us on our trip in Auckland. That was dangerous. We were in like a little mini VW bus with 8 people in it, and Dunedin. If you ever get to Dunedin, it has the steepest street in the world. It's like almost a 45-degree angle. It's like or better than 45 degrees. It's real
I want to bike down it.
Probably not advisable.
No.
It's in a residential area. I'll tell you the story after the show because it's fairly interesting history of Dunedin. So
it's the New Zealand podcast now.
Oh, so awesome. Yes. Go to New Zealand if you can. So Mr. Betcher, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss things that weren't about New Zealand or besides New Zealand, Wellington?
Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter at BetcherPwned. BOETTCHERPWNED.
IMF Security, LogMD, all that.
You got it
as well. Mr. Goff is your salesperson and mouth of the organization. So,
my toady.
Yeah, you're head developer and CTO or whatever. So, all right. So you can find out the official BreakSec podcast is at BreakSec on Twitter. I'm at Brian Brake, BryanBrake. We have a Slack if you want to join us and talk about podcasts or just anything else in the world that's InfoSec related. And actually, we have a random channel so you can talk about other stuff that isn't that. I had to keep.
That's where I'm usually at.
I had to keep the Game of Thrones spoilers off of there last night. Oh my god.
Oh, dude, I watched it today. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Ixnay
no spoilers, but oh god.
Ixnay on the Oiler space. So, too soon. So, if you want to join us on there, we have a lot of people on there. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. We have a job board. Our book club's starting up in 2 days on the 30th. We're going to go through a book there. You can find out how to buy that and get that. It's an ebook if you want to do it, an ebook or a dead tree. breaksec.signup.team, and our fancy bot will send you an email and allow you to connect. So... we're on iTunes. If you are on iTunes and you download it there, we would love some feedback there to help us get some more visibility. Thank you so much to all of our patrons on our Patreon. We're, I don't have to pay out of pocket anymore to support the show on Libsyn, which is fantastic. But yeah, we believe in the value for value model. So if you find value in our show, feel free to leave something in the tip jar, if you will, by going to our Patreon. Or I'll shake
it out of you the next time I see you.
Wow. Okay. So Ms. Berlin's in the protection racket, apparently.
I'm the muscle of this podcast.
Wow. I'll have you
Well,
know,
she is a DEF CON goon, so I'll give her that.
That is true. I have you know I can do 10 push-ups.
Me too.
Not without cheating, though. I sometimes need to put my knees down. But all right. Well, let's be done with this. All right. So we're on SoundCloud. We're on iTunes, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio. We're on Stitcher. Apparently, the way they're doing Stitcher now, they're changing the way the downloads work over there. So if something changes on your interface, I apologize. You can email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com. So yeah, we're happy you're here and listening. So that was it for this week on Breaking Down Security. You have a great week. Be safe. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.